Hello Rebel Divas and welcome to my writer's den. Today I'm going to share with you a short story from my book, The Accidental Traveler. Now the stories in this book are short vignettes, flash fiction, short stories, kind of vignettes based on my real experiences having traveled around the world and back, and I've been traveling since I was a little baby, so I thought I'd put them into fun little short stories that I hope you'll enjoy. So today I'm going to share with you the story in that book called The Mermaid of Luxembourg. Now, since this is a video and you don't want to be listening to a talking head forever, I thought I'd break these short stories down into short episodes that like chewable bites that you can watch for a short time, hopefully enjoy it, and then come back and watch the second episode the next week. So today is the first episode of 3 of this story called The Mermaid of Luxembourg. Are you ready for a story? Alright, okay. Let me start. We crossed an arc stone bridge into the land of citadels and castles. The Grand Duchy of Luxembourg, nestled on a fairy tale forested cliff, rose in front of us, promising mysteries of long ago. Mark, my then husband, and I finally found a weekend for a hastily planned getaway. This was a treat for both of us, after months of long nights at the office and cross-Atlantic red-eyes for both of us. All I wanted was an escape, if only temporarily, to a place that would make me forget the countless conference calls, you know what I'm talking about, in characterless boardrooms. You really know what I'm talking about. Then all Mark wanted was to walk the 23-kilometer medieval passageway that was carved into rock under Luxembourg's ancient city. That's where we found ourselves, hiking through the dark, damp tunnels of this ancient city, stopping only to look at the cannons pointed at imaginary enemies through openings in the rock. The stairways were steep and slippery, and the tunnels got narrower and narrower. How did the legionnaires travel through these shafts with their armor and their horses, I wondered. When we first entered the tunnel, I was sure I could do it, but after several minutes in, I wasn't so sure. I stuck close to Mark and I struggled to keep down these claustrophobic feelings that were threatening to leap out of me. You know, I had these fleeting thoughts of creepy vampires and with ghoulish eyes that kept coming in my mind, and my mind was running amok with images of screeching bats fluttering over my head. There were no bats in the cave, but that was what was coming up. And at one point I turned on my mobile and I found out that to my horror that there was no cell phone reception. So I was not having a wonderful time in the tunnels, and I couldn't imagine what Mark saw in these dark subterranean caves. When we finally caught sight of the light at the end of the tunnel, literally, I let out a huge sigh. Thank God we're coming out. And I started to breathe normally again. It was my turn now. We'd been to the tunnels that Mark had wanted to visit. I had wanted to go and see the Hollow Tooth. The Hollow Tooth was the remains of a fortification from 1,000 years ago. The tower, it was now in ruins, had stonework jutting from its corners looking like a witch's craggy mouth. And up on that tower, once we got up to it, I turned around and around and around and took in the panorama, the rocky cliffs, the beautiful bridges, the stone fortress surrounding this ancient city. Sunken in the gorge below us was a silver river winding itself around a yellow church with steel steeples that reached to the sky. The view from the Hollow Tooth was magnificent. We'd spent the entire morning and part of the afternoon sightseeing, and I was getting starved. Mark, who was a gourmand as much as a gourmet, he was ready to eat as well, but he wanted to eat well. He turned to me. "Did you know this place has 11 Michelin-starred restaurants?" he asked me. "Can you imagine?" Nope, I shook my head. The walk had exhausted me, and I was ready for an outdoor shish kebab stall if I found one. I really didn't care how many stars that shish kebab had. But I knew Mark. He had been looking forward to trying the best local food, and we had only 2 days in Luxembourg City to experience all this. So we went in search of one of these starred restaurants, and for that we had to climb the cobblestone path toward the top of the city fortress. And this place had been converted into a gigantic modern outdoor balcony full of restaurants and bistros bustling with tourists. And that's where we headed, looking for a Michelin-starred restaurant. And when we arrived at the first restaurant, according to our guidebook, one of the recommended ones, there was a man in an impeccable grey pinstripe suit right on the red carpet in front of that restaurant, and he greeted us with a bonjour madame, bonjour monsieur, with a very polite demeanor. And when I looked at him, I felt like he belonged more in a corner office of a Luxembourg investment bank rather than in front of an eating establishment. When we got closer and closer, and we got to him, he was polite, but I saw that his eyes looked a little sorrowful. He looked sad, looked us up and down a little bit, and then he shook his head and said, "I'm really afraid, but I cannot take you in." "I'm very, very sorry to say this," he said. Mark's face fell. I peeked behind the man. The restaurant was almost empty. Inside, tables were clothed in crisp white linen, laden with golden cutlery and sparkling glassware. And from the ceiling hung glittering chandeliers of crystal and silver. It was a beautiful place. This is a place for royalty, I thought, in awe. The man was flipping his guest book because Mark had asked him to find a spot for us. "Well," the man said, "we have an opening in 4 months. I would be delighted to put your name in then." He paused and he eyed Mark's jeans and polo shirt, a little dusty after our walk in the tunnel. "However," the man said, "I'd highly recommend formal attire when you come here next time." I looked down at my short summer dress and my flat shoes, and I wondered, what does that mean for me? An evening gown and heels? Imagine going in the tunnels with that. So we stepped away. Mark was quite disappointed. To tell you the truth, I was slightly relieved. Sitting down for a hushed meal in stiflingly luxurious surroundings, with some snobbish people around me on top of that, was not really what I wanted at that time. Then, as we turned around the corner, I saw it, a small bistro. There was not even a name on that bistro outside the walls. It was carved right into the rock wall. This little bistro had a simple facade, but there was something about it that made me want to go in. I'm going to stop there. Stay tuned next week to find out what happens when we walked into that little bistro in the next episode, the second out of 3 episodes of The Mermaid of Luxembourg.